People them they sing, people them they yarn. We are for APC. Oh no no no. We are for APC. Oh no no no.
Thank you very much. Please sit, please. I'm going to seek your indulgence to sit now. As in most diaspora chapters of the party, we were faced with the challenges of choosing to go forward or disintegrate, or choosing to go forward or doing the things that we felt were in the very best interest of the party in the UK. We had a lot of challenges in terms of people who felt, I think this is something that is very important for us to talk about today. People who felt that either they must be the ones who will take charge of the leadership of APC in the UK because of who they know, because of who they know, or in our opinion, they must take charge of the leadership of APC in the UK because of where they are from, or they must take charge of APC in the UK because of maybe their age. I don't know. But we were clear, in our determination to make sure that we stood our ground in working with the national leadership of the party and following clearly identifiable and detailed guidelines as were being given to us by the national leadership of the party. We were clear that if Nigerians in the diaspora must begin to make the impact that we should be making, we should also begin to do things differently. And doing things differently is this, that we must now learn what it means to follow leadership in a political party. And that was what we stuck with. We decided that we were not going to quarrel with anyone. All we were begging was that they should leave us alone. Leave us alone to follow the instructions, the leadership and the guidance of the leaders of our party. But I can tell you that they simply refused to leave us alone. So that was a huge challenge because they kept coming back over and over again. Sometimes they go on the internet to spread all manner of rumors and lies and all that. And some of them are very, very vast in the use of social media and IT and all that to manipulate information and all that of stuff. So if you went online, you will see all kinds of things. But we were determined that we were not going to yield the ground to them. Regardless, we simply refused. We said we were not yielding the ground. We will stand our ground because Nigeria belongs to Nigerians. It doesn't belong to anybody from any particular part of the country, and it doesn't belong to anybody because they know Mr. A or they know Mr. B. So we can say that today we all belong to a party that has due recognition. We now have the letter of recognition from the headquarters approved by the NEC of APC. So our struggles have not been in vain. We are still faced with the challenges of people who are so indisciplined that they will not still listen and follow due order. But again, we are determined that we will not yield ground to them. We chose to follow the leadership of our party. We chose to obey the leadership of our party. We chose to respect the leadership of our party. Every other person must also respect, obey, and follow the leadership of APC in Nigeria. That is what we keep saying to everyone. Anyone who does not want to do that, sometimes it looks like I'm rude. I say, please leave the party, go and form your party. INEC is there, just go and register your political party. Stop disturbing us. if you cannot, and if you do not believe that you should follow leadership. People worked hard. People spent money. People spent sleepless nights to form APC. It didn't fall from the sky. APC did not fall from the sky. APC did not fall from heaven. People put it together. Our duty is to respect those people. Our duty is to follow the leadership of those people. And our duty is to ensure that what they have worked so hard for is not messed up by our own behaviors. So I want to thank the APC Bedfordshire for sticking with us. Just as you said, it's not been easy, but we are grateful that we have people like you who were constantly sure were behind us in our struggles. We want Nigerians in the diaspora. As I said in my speech last year, our desire is this: at the time we come, when Nigerians who are living abroad will also be able to vote. It is the agenda we have set for ourselves. And we are saying we are not going to back down, but we keep pushing. We are using every opportunity we have to engage with everybody, okay, that matters in this business. Last month we were with Honorable Abikadabiri, and we kept putting pressure. We met with Rita Orji, the chairman of the Senate Committee. We are putting pressure. They are assuring us that it will happen. We want to make sure that we can vote. Then, as I said last year, any presidential candidate who does not come to the diaspora to campaign to us, we vote against him. Because they have to respect us. We are Nigerians. We've had enough of people taking us for granted. But this is not going to happen if we are not determined that it must happen. We have to be determined that this must happen, that we must be allowed to vote. It's a right that we are being denied of. So thank you, and I'm going to now go back to the speech that I have prepared. I bring you fraternal greetings and congratulate you on this occasion of your branch first year anniversary. When we came here last year for the inauguration of your branch, I commended very well your very well organized program as the best we had seen since the branches started opening up across the UK. Well done for keeping up with your tradition of excellence in branch activities. The APC-led federal government of Nigeria, under the leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari, came into office with a message of change campaign. And the three cardinal points of President Buhari's campaign promises were hinged on one. Buhari promised to fight corruption. 2, Buhari promised to tackle insecurity. 3, Buhari promised to create jobs. Now, you will see right away that the president took a pragmatic and very distilled look at the APC manifesto that was titled "A New Party for a New Nigeria." It appears to me that he decided to take a focused approach on those issues he considered the main stumbling block to Nigeria's liberation and or emergence into a peaceful, prosperous, and stable country. I suggest that this shows that he has given great thought to his presidential ambition and what he would like to be remembered for as president of Nigeria. So I will go on these 3 items one by one and how well his presidency has done. We must put ourselves in a position to review his presidency and hopefully also profile our thoughts. Buhari promised to fight corruption. Now, he was very clear. He says, we either kill corruption or corruption will kill us. I wanted to find out if there was an empirical basis for his definition, for why he said so. So I went to do some literature search. In 1999, Inge Amundsen described corruption as a disease, a cancer that eats into the cultural, political, and economic fabric of society and destroys the functioning of vital organs. That is clearly a disease that kills. So Mr. President was absolutely right. I'm going to review this subject along 2 broad lines, namely financial and political corruption. Of course, you can add several things to the theme of corruption, but I like to focus on those things, those two strands that I feel are the main problems that Nigeria is faced with: financial corruption and political corruption. I will start with the financial corruption. No doubt, tremendous progress has been made in re-energizing and repositioning the national anti-graft bodies, namely the EFCC and ICPC, such that not just newspaper stories anymore, but rather numerous convictions and asset recovery is taking place on a regular basis today. Indeed, cash recovered in all currencies within the last 1 year, as declared by Mr. President, it's well over half of the national budget for this year. Mr. President has declared that in naira value alone, 2.something trillion naira has been recovered. And when you had the value of the pound sterling, the dollars, and the euros, it's well over 3 trillion. The budget for this year is 6 trillion. So the amount of money recovered from people who stole from our Commonwealth alone is more than half of our national budget. That is how well this presidency has done in keeping to his promise to tackle corruption. To me, this is commendable and should give us hope that at last Nigeria is beginning to set out on a journey of creating an environment that is conducive for business. Because wherever financial corruption thrives, businesses cannot thrive because of the stifling nature of activities such as bribe taking, which inevitably slows down the processing of payments and reduced profit margins for business people. Number two, the successes so far recorded in the area of anti-corruption war in financial dealings seems limited to the national government agencies at the moment. It is now time for systems to be devised to tackle this scourge at the state and local government levels, where it appears that the stink of financial sleaze is suspected to be even more prevalent, with some state governors literally behaving like overlords, and local government leadership only appearing in offices to collect and share monthly allocation. It means, therefore, that the anti-corruption bodies need new thinking in spreading its intelligence-gathering tentacles across all sections of government. It is time to move beyond waiting for petitions to be sent before investigation commences. There has to be a proactive mechanism, independently driven by organizations such as EFCC, through the deployment of both technology as well as specially trained invisible marshals who live their lives doing other things but who work as financial intelligence officers to snoop around and help with information gathering on the financial behaviors at all levels of government across the country all year round. This is the innovation I suggest is needed to fully ensure that the present anti-corruption program not only succeeds but outlive the Buhari presidency and become a way of life in Nigeria. Now I move on to the issue of political corruption. Political corruption takes place at the high level of the political systems. Usually, political corruption is when political decision makers use the political powers they are armed with to sustain their power, their status, and their wealth. Thus, political corruption can be distinguished from bureaucratic corruption, which is corruption in the public administration and the implementation end of politics. So we need to get this clear. Civil servants are involved at the bureaucratic level of corruption. The politicians would have had to approve necessary funding to flow through the system for civil servants to be corrupt. But the political aspect of corruption is beyond just monetary. Political corruption, means that people will do the things that they need to do to override institutional and systems that are in place to ensure that a country survives. You see straight away that political corruption is actually the foundation for financial corruption, and indeed may be worse than financial corruption. In my mind, the behemoth encompasses such behaviors as nepotism, ethnic and religious exclusivity, and elevations of members of your group over and beyond all others in the belief that they are the only ones you can trust. That is political corruption. When I take my brother, who may not be as good as yourself, and gives him a job just simply because he's my brother. Or when I decide to manipulate the electoral process to ensure that only people of my club, only people who belong to my cult, only people who belong to my religion, only people who belong to my society are the ones who gain the upper hand. It means that we will end up enthroning mediocrity in place of excellence. It means that we will bring in people who have no interest whatsoever in driving the process of developing our country and our economies. That is political corruption, and that is why it's such a huge disease in any system. And that is why every country that you can look at that is making progress today takes a harsh look. They take a harsh look at the question of political misbehaviors. And that is why you find that any politician who contravenes certain norms is forced to resign immediately. And where those norms poses the problem of national security, they are prosecuted. Because when the issue of political corruption is not tackled in a society, in a country, what you end up having is that financial corruption becomes child play. When you look at the Nigerian situation, the numerous situations of assassinations that have taken place are all evidences of political corruption. You take the number of assassinations that took place in Rivers State, okay, in Gombe State, in Akwa Ibom State, and during the Osun election, the level of intimidation that took place, in Osun State, and in Ekiti State, the level of intimidation that took place, and nothing was done to the individuals that were concerned with these misbehaviors until recently, when the military officers who were involved in this process were court-martialed, and we now know that many of them have been dismissed. That is what should be the process. If civil servants bring themselves into the arena of political engagement, they should lose their jobs, they should be dismissed, and they should be prosecuted. Because they have no business being involved in the political process. The duty of a civil servant is to ensure continuity of government. Regardless of which political party is in power, the duty of civil service is to ensure continuity of government. Where they become compromised, they should not only be investigated, they should not only be dismissed, they should be prosecuted. Because by so getting involved, they disrupt the smooth running and growth of systems. And therefore, such countries become stunted, they never develop, and they never grow. Because people who ought to get into appropriate offices to drive changes that will enable societies to grow and become comfortable for citizens are not allowed to get into offices. Now, this is an area that is the area of political corruption that I'm not sure the government of President Buhari has yet come to grip with. What with the reported cases of secret employment of children, relatives, and connected individuals into several government parastatals without reference to lay down guidelines. And moreover, at a time when a large army of unemployed Nigerians roam the streets of our country. That incident, if left unchallenged, if left undealt with, will probably be a smelly stink that this government is going to carry for a very, very long time, probably until they leave government and thereafter. The CBN has no right employing people secretly. The FIRS have no right employing people secretly. No agency of government should employ Nigerians secretly, and not just secretly, collecting names from connected individuals to give employment to. Not especially at this time when millions of Nigerian youths are roaming the streets unemployed. I'll give you an example. Just 2 weeks ago, I was reading about the number of persons that have applied for jobs, the 500,000 jobs. Okay, the 500,000 jobs. I mean, that is marvelous initiative by this government. Indications for 500,000 jobs. Now, you can understand why I say that no agency of government have a right in our present crisis-ridden situation to provide jobs or give jobs secretly to children of politically exposed individuals. It should be considered a crime, and this government must do something about it. It is my view that this government cannot afford to keep quiet or turn a blind eye on this behavior, with all the attendant potential it carries for continued institutional decay and degeneration. The priority of government should be about how to actively promote those behaviors that will encourage state institutional regeneration and renewal. And there is an element of urgency in this regard to win public trust and support for the war against corruption. Item number 2, Buhari promised to tackle insecurity. First, by the time President Buhari was sworn in May 2015, Nigeria faced grave danger of being overrun by Boko Haram. True. They were having a field day. They were gaining territory on a daily basis in the northeast of Nigeria. The Nigerian armed forces did not seem to have an answer to the ravaging advance of the terrorists. Now we know why. We now know that the military was grossly under-resourced, even though at the time, some of the soldiers were crying out that they were sent to battlefront with bare hands to fight against an enemy that was well armed. And not just that, an enemy that seems to know its every tactical plan and movement. We now know that at the highest level of the military, monies meant for the purchase of military hardware and for the welfare of soldiers were being systematically pillaged by the military and security leadership. Perhaps, if no other event manifests the utter heartlessness of the last government, this particular behavior did. Some of the soldiers who complained were assembled, court-martialed, and some sentenced to death, whilst others were given jail sentences. How could this have happened to our proud armed forces, who have in time past demonstrated leadership in numerous conflict zones in Africa and beyond? Now the story has changed. True to his campaign promise, President Buhari has mobilized national and international resources to take the battle to the doorsteps of Boko Haram. And the terrorist group has been broken, degraded, and peace is finally returning to the northeast of Nigeria. On this score, I will award Mr. President and his government a distinction. Number 2, but there is a new threat that has returned to the country with the restiveness and armed militancy that is returning to the Niger Delta. A new militant organization, the Niger Delta Avenger, that seem to be only interested in and indeed determined to maintain the now apparent old order of let me chop oil money because now we get on mentality has emerged. They are blowing up pipelines and oil facilities, oil production facilities, leading to a massive drop in oil production as well as a drop in power generation. The NDA seems to not care that for 6 years, a son of the soil occupied Aso Rock, and all he achieved was to open the national coffers and poured out our commonwealth into the banks of fuels. No development came to the communities of the Niger Delta. Even already approved federal projects in the region were not executed. A new form of internal colonization rose within the region, with one ethnic group seeming to take on the new role of regional overlords. And in the midst of all the poverty, a new cream of super rich emerged at the expense of the Niger Delta communities. Now, you may be wondering, what is he talking about? about internal colonization. For those of us from the Niger Delta, we know. We don't need anyone to tell us. All of a sudden, it just became the kings and the lords. Everywhere you turn to Niger Delta, from River State to Bayelsa to Cross River to Edo and to Ondo State. What was the point of human beings like us spending donkey years fighting and struggling for the restructuring of Nigeria? To give ethnic minorities a voice in the state of affairs of our country, if one ethnic minority is going to get up and start lording over the rest. What was the point? From 1992 until Idaewor became too old to travel to the UK until 2008 or so, I was involved with the organizations and the operation of Movement for National Reformation. I was the European director, European coordinator for MNR. I was involved in organizing PRONACO. And what was our agenda? Restructure Nigeria so that every ethnic group will have a voice within our country. It is incongruous that human beings like we will be alive and we will see a situation where, even at our own doorsteps, our supposed brothers began to harass, dominate, and torment our own people because their son was in Aso Rock. It's incongruous. It's unacceptable. That was not what we were fighting for. And we have to accept the reality. President Jonathan became president on the platform of those struggles.
That's correct.
That was why he became president. They wanted somebody from the Niger Delta to assuage the feelings of the Niger Delta people who have been oppressed for over 50-something years when oil was found, in their community, and oil had been taken away and the place was being degraded and destroyed. It was to assuage our feelings, but to make us feel good. Perhaps you need someone like me who is from that region to say what I'm saying. Because if a Yoruba man says this, they will rise up against that person in anger. If a Hausa man says this, they will rise up against that person in anger. If an Igbo man says this, they will say, who give you mouth to say the things you are saying? But I can say it. I can say it because I'm from that region. I can say it because I have spent a good part of my life in this struggle. So I can say it. That when we had a son of the soil on that seat, when he should have ensured that at least projects that were already approved, projects that were there, the East-West Coast Road, the Port Harcourt-Calabar Road, when he should have ensured that those projects were executed, completed, he didn't lift a finger to do anything. He met a contaminated ecosystem, he left it worse. And yet, our son has a PhD in hydrobiology. That is why people like me, when we sit down to speak about this, we will speak about it with a bit of annoyance. Because it should not be the case. And therefore, I do not agree, I do not believe that we need to have another militant group at this point in time. Because our people have lost their lives over the years, struggling to have gotten us to where we got to. And when the opportunity was given to us, we blew it big time. That truth must be told all the time. That is the only way the coming generation will learn the history that we are talking about. Perhaps it's very unlikely it will be in my own time. I've already crossed the line. I'm not terribly old, but I think I've spent a good deal of my time already. But the people coming behind must learn of what has happened before so that they don't make the same mistakes. So the reason that the Niger Delta Avengers have given for coming out is what they call resource control. They want the continuation of amnesty program. But we know that recently they have come out to say that really the reason they are bombing and destroying oil facilities is because they want all corruption charges against every governor from the Niger Delta to be dropped. That is what they have said. I do not agree that government should wink at such demands. Number 3, successes of APC-led government of President Buhari with regard to the Niger Delta. Since coming into office, the APC government of President Buhari has set out a clear agenda for the Niger Delta, namely the construction of the already approved rail project. That is the one I just mentioned, the Port Harcourt Calabar Road. It's not going to be completed. They have given a go-ahead for the execution of the East-West Coast Road that will start from Lagos, run through the entire length of the Atlantic from Ogun waterside, through Ondo, through Edo, through Rivers State, and all the way down. The entire length of our Atlantic coast will have this road, bringing economic power to poor citizens who had no access to civilization, so to say. So the APC government is getting this done. And then, wonderfully, very recently, the federal government launched its most ambitious cleanup project in oil-polluted communities of Niger Delta, in line with the UN environmental study and recommendation for the region. This is the first time any government in Nigeria is taking such gigantic steps to restore life back to the destroyed and degraded Niger Delta ecosystem. So again, in terms of taking steps to ensure that finally the people of Niger Delta at the community level enjoy the benefits of oil production in their communities, I give the APC government of President Buhari a pass with distinction. Now, so what is missing in resolving Nigerian security challenges? Because something is still wrong. To tackle finally the long and to tackle and ensure long-term sustainable security in Nigeria, not just in the Northeast or in Niger Delta, a more fundamental approach needs to be adopted. And here, it appears to me that our party and government is failing. For us in the UK, we have, in the last 2 years, witnessed or are witnessing 2 referendums. First, the Scottish referendum. And on June 23rd, 2016, the EU referendum. What is the significance of these, and what lessons do they project to the security challenges Nigeria faces? There is a direct correlation between citizens feeling that they have a stake in the governance of their country, thus creating that feeling of ownership and internal security. The Nigerian leadership at both the executive and legislative arms cannot and should not continue to alienate the Nigerian people that they are working hard to serve. I am sure there is justifiable reason why President Buhari does not want to hear anything about the restructuring of the Nigerian state. Justifiably, he seems not pleased with the amount of money that was expended in organizing the last national conference by former President Goodluck Jonathan. And yes, our party, the APC, was clear that they were not in support of that conference. Yet, it is time for both our party leadership and President Buhari to take a fresh look at the challenging question of Nigeria national restructuring. For the purpose of national security, national reconstruction, and the elevation of a sense of new national culture of ownership, devotion, and acceptance of our Nigerianness. The nearly 300 ethnic nationalities that constitute the Nigerian state should be given a chance to actively participate in making a decision on the core issues that involve our Commonwealth. Our party, the APC, and President Buhari need to step back and review the present situation. We, as a party in government, have a real chance of creating the Nigeria of our dream. A country that values its citizens, not just the rulers. A country that is futuristic in planning, yet delivering maximum benefit of governance to its citizens in the now, and a country determined to contribute to world peace and prosperity, and a country that is fully running in the stream of truly participatory democracy. How can this be done? So my thoughts, as a government, I suggest that we do not need another sovereign national conference. Let there be a distillation of the core issues, namely, 1, the form of government. What form of government do we want in Nigeria? Parliamentary or presidential? Our leaders cannot, must not, and should not decide that for Nigerians. We should take that decision. There should be a referendum. That is what we are doing here. We want to belong to Europe or not? It's a big question. But our government is allowing us make that choice. That must be the case in Nigeria. 2, resource control and true federalism. On paper, we are a federal state. In practice, we are a unitary state. Because all resources everywhere in the country is assembled, collected, and held at the center. A system that was put in place by the military government because that is what they know. They are used to a military barrack-style mentality of leadership. It shouldn't be so. If you are running a federal government, it means that the states should have their autonomy, not just on paper, not just for a governor to do whatever he or she likes. It means that a state will have a level of control over its resources, over its taxes, over its police. That is what happens in the US. True or false? So why are we behaving as if we want to invent a new form of presidential system of government? Number C. Sorry, I was talking about B. Yeah, resource control and federalism. Central ownership and sharing of resources, as is presently the case, versus a devolved system that sets percentage contribution to the center from each state. C. Relationship between the states and local government, etc. The federal government should set a timeline to conduct a referendum during which he will sensitize, educate, and mobilize the people on the issues outlined above, or even more. And at the chosen date, the Nigerian people should be called out to vote in a referendum on these issues. The National Orientation Agency is already in existence and can lead on this campaign and sensitization program, while INEC conducts the voting aspect. The outcome becomes binding on all Nigerians, and the Constitution amended accordingly by the National Assembly to reflect the new status. I believe that with this approach, the unending cry of marginalization, resource control, and the question of the form of government will be settled by the people and therefore become the new order. Nigeria, like all other countries, now I move on to Buhari promised jobs. Yes, he did promise to provide jobs. Some millions, 1 million per year or something of the sort. Nigeria, like all other countries, classed either as poor or developing economies, have a relatively young population demographic. This by itself should be a huge advantage, except that it also means that millions of young people are out of work. All right? They are young, they need to work. The APC federal government, under the leadership of President Buhari, took off very slowly, with operators of government levers not installed months after the president took office, and indeed many still not in place into the second year in the life of this government. This scenario, coupled with the revelations of budget padding, has meant that whatever promise was made in this regard is only just beginning to take off. The new national initiative on job creation, the End Power Project, has now been launched to generate 500,000 jobs for graduates and non-graduates alike. This is a massive step in dealing finally with the backlog of millions of young people who have been on the employment market for years. Other sectors like the police force is also in the place of recruiting. What now needs to be done is stepping up the drive to encourage private sector growth for job creation. I am confident that the APC government of President Buhari will surpass expectation in this regard, now that the process has finally started and lessons must have been learned. I also believe that the diaspora Nigerian population have real opportunity here to contribute to national development through job creation. We in the UK, in partnership with other national bodies and associations in Europe and elsewhere, are already actively engaged in the process of mobilizing towards diaspora group participation in project development. Maybe here I should make some some little statement. What we are trying to do at this point in time is register a diaspora holding company. We have entered into a working relationship with the former MD of Transcorp. So he is guiding us, advising us, and is going to help take this process forward. I'm sure those of us who know about Transcorp will know what I'm talking about. So because the reason we are engaging is because of his deep knowledge of the workings of the Nigerian business environment, as well as being an investment banker. Once the process of registrations are completed, both here in the UK and in Nigeria, the aim will be to access funds by encouraging people to invest in and then approaching government to take over systems and projects. So rather than going to government and asking for appointments, for contracts, if you go with a portfolio value of £500 million and you say, I want to be able to set up a power station, government will be more than happy to allow you to do it because you have the money, you can attract the expertise, and therefore you are only bringing positive change to the system. We have had 2 events to prepare for this. The first one was the event that we had at the House of Commons. And then following the House of Commons event, we had a round table during which he made a detailed presentation of his thoughts and the way he thinks this could be done. So we are working, as I said, we are working closely with him, and very soon we will come out. We have also engaged and made a presentation on this to the SSA, to the President on Foreign Affairs, and we have put a synopsis of this program together and given to the party leadership. So they know exactly what we are doing. Because at some point we are going to ask them to signpost us. We are clear in what we are asking them. If we are coming into the rail sector, we will come to the party to signpost us. Note, this project is not an APC limited project. It is for all Nigerians in the diaspora. So that both within and without the life of this of an APC government, this project will succeed. So this is part of the strategy we are putting in place to empower Nigerians in the diaspora with the hope that with such empowerment, they can now participate more robustly and more coherently in the political process. We want it to be a thing of the past when we will gather like this and say we are doing a fundraising launch for one of our members to go and contest, and at the end we end up raising £1,000. And you and I know that £1,000 will not do anything.
Poster.
Yeah. Do you get the point? So if any of our members says, I want to be governor of a state, and what we are talking about is sufficiently successful, we can say, yes, don't worry. We will not only mobilize amongst ourselves, we mobilize ourselves, because when you have money, rich people also want to stay with you. Yeah? When you have money, rich people also congregate around you. So you will not only spend your money, you will spend their money to put our people in offices. Okay. That is what we want to do. So we are working hard. We are fortunate that we have Mr. Okoro working with us. Mr. Nick Okoro is his name. We are fortunate that we have him working with us, and that we also have won the partnership in this regard of the Nigerians in the Square Mile. I don't know how many of us know about that. Nigerians who work in the Square Mile in London, the financial district of London, all right, they have an association. I've met with the chairman, the president of that association, and he's fully on board on this project. So we are making sure that we plug all the necessary zones to ensure that this is a success. So finally, my brothers and sisters, we are confident that this government will not fail. Though the present situation appears absolutely depressing because of the numerous challenges being faced in the effort to recover national drive and focus for development. Like all Nigerians, we are anxious that the process moves faster, especially knowing that ours is a government that is driven by the party's ideology of social democracy and welfareism. We align ourselves completely with the people of Nigeria and calls on our party leadership and government to continue to strive hard to ensure that the problems of the poor and lack of electricity and food provisions be urgently tackled. Perhaps a short-term solution to the increased cost of agricultural produce is a consideration of allowing for private import of essential products or essential commodities such as tomatoes to make sure and allow our people to survive. The basket of tomato is now so expensive that people are cooking without tomatoes. So our government need to do something about it. And to the leadership and all members of APC UK Bedfordshire branch, I say big congratulations on your 1-year anniversary, and thank you for inviting me and my team to this celebratory event. Thank you.
People them they know. We are for APC.